So there's a lot of videos being made right now by white people who want to show that black people are being racist towards them. So let's take this opportunity to talk about why that isn't true and what righteous indignation is. Watch this video, then let's talk about it.
A lot of people are not going to like this post. They're going to get pissed off at me and tell me that I'm a racist. I'm going to tell you right now, I am not a racist. And the people that I have dealt with that are African American are racist. Being a DoorDasher, I drive down on Martin Luther King Drive in Fort Myers quite a bit. I pick up a lot of deliveries from places, cafes and everything that are not like super prominent and all of that, and people order from them quite a bit. So just as an example, I will give you just an example today because there are so many. Today I go into this place called Palm Tree Cafe. I've been there before. There is a lot of African Americans that go in there. White people, I have not seen any white people other than myself. I go in there. I don't expect anything from anybody but the same thing I give to them. So I'm standing there and I'm picking up an order for someone, and I talk to the girl and she talks to the guy and she says, go pick it up at the window. I said, okay. So I turn around and I said, there's 2 packages. I said, is this for so-and-so? And excuse me, is this for so-and-so? Excuse me, this is DoorDash. He's right there, and he won't answer me. And finally, the girl from behind the counter goes, Gary, is that DoorDash? And he goes, yeah. Okay, so I pick it up. I go up there and the girl bags it for me and I do everything, and I'm going to reach for it because I'm at the counter and this other African American woman is standing there, and I said, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't mean to reach past you. And she fucking ignores me. You know what? Bullshit. This is bullshit. White lives matter too. You know what? We are becoming the minority. Y'all treat us like shit. You know, I'm out there door dashing. I have no air conditioning. I have a fucking fan on my neck to try and keep cool, eating ice cubes. And these people are telling me I'm not even good enough to acknowledge. Okay, fucking vent over. Just get used to yourselves. I'm not going to even mention the fact of the goddamn guy standing in the front of the store, unzipping his pants when little girls go running by into the store. You know, I mean, he's yelling shit that nobody can understand. Excuse me. But as soon as this little girl gets out of the car and jumps in to go in the thing, hey, baby, and unzips his pants. What the
Well, Karen, I'm going to be kind and acknowledge the fact that the experience that you shared must have been uncomfortable and frustrating for you because you're just trying to do your job, right? But let's start with the beginning of your video where you say that you are not racist. That is not a proclamation that we as white people get to make about ourselves. We don't get to pass a test and then carry an I'm not racist card. Because what that statement means is that you lack self-reflection and you are not willing to continually examine your unconscious biases and your indoctrinated societal prejudices. And you do have them. And how do I know it? It's because you look like me and you were born in this country. And those are the teachings that we were indoctrinated into. This country's religious, societal, and political structures are entrenched in patriarchy that utilize systemic racism. And that systemic racism has been used to oppress Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. And systemic racism is about opportunities that aren't available to Black, Indigenous, and people of color that are available to white people around the job market, housing, education, and so on. And when you make a statement such as, I'm not racist, you're implying that you're finished learning about racism. And this is something that we are never done with. We are constantly on a path of learning and learning how we can be better allies. And the fact that you screamed White Lives Matter towards the end of your video, where you certainly moved to a level of outrage that is more of a reflection of who you really are. So the two statements are incompatible. I'm not racist and white lives matter don't belong together. But I want to jump forward and talk about righteous indignation, because as I watched your video, that's what I got the feeling that you were attempting to invoke, whether you knew it or not. And don't get me wrong, righteous indignation in and of itself can be a good thing, but when it's used wrong, it can do harm. And so what is it? It's this intense emotional response to some kind of moral outrage or injustice, which typically leads to movement or group action or something coming together, cohesiveness to solve a problem. Think environmental activism and civil rights movements. But I do find the timing of your video interesting because you release it on a day when the country is talking about righteous indignation towards the white men who attacked the black man in Montgomery, and how there is a moral outrage, righteous indignation rising, and a cohesiveness that's moving, that's basically saying enough is enough. These things are not going to continue to happen in this country. So it's very common for those in power who want to make sure that their power is not threatened to try to flip the narrative or deflect the energy from a certain situation and create a moral outrage by using righteous indignation towards other things. And that's the vibe I'm picking up here. And as uncomfortable as that situation was for you, in no way was that a racist incident, and in no way should it have invoked the kind of anger that you are showing towards the end of your video, where you decide to add a completely irrelevant story about a man that you admit is outside of the restaurant and trying to draw a bridge to the quality of people that are inside. That kind of implication is harmful, and it's stereotypical of a person who is not dealing with their unconscious bias, also known as racist beliefs. But there's one more level to your story. Karen, you're in Florida. It's being run by a Christian nationalist who is annihilating human rights and is whitewashing our nation's history. Historically oppressed people are not only scared, but they're outraged, and they should be. But you then are trying to come on here and feign outrage about someone who was rude to you in a restaurant. Those of us who are truly trying to do the work to be helpful allies and learn what it means to be anti-racist should look at that situation and say, what can I do to show them that I truly am a helpful ally? Then I would ask myself, how do my actions and my words prove that I am an ally? Now you can say, look, I just want to do my job. I want to get in and out, and I just want to get on the road. And I get that, Karen, but that is not the world that we are living in. And people who look like us are primarily responsible for perpetuating systemic racism in this country. And now systemic racism is being elevated and promoted by presidential hopefuls as their platform. Those people in that restaurant are not your antagonist. These politicians are. Our righteous indignation should be creating a movement pointing towards those politicians and telling them that we are not going to tolerate this in our country. So Karen, you're an angry white woman, but I want to challenge you with my video and for you to go back and revisit what you said in yours. Now that you know that we cannot declare ourselves as not being racist and that we really need to do the work, now that you understand that you did not experience racism, and now that you understand what righteous indignation is and why we need to use it wisely, and that means using movements for the good of the whole, and that includes dismantling systems of oppression that have been proven time and again to harm Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Because when righteous indignation is weaponized over an injustice that does not exist, it does more harm than good. Remember, you walked into a restaurant where most of those people have never experienced the status that you have simply by the color of your skin. Now, no hate towards you, but this is not the video to prove that you're not a racist. Do the work to learn what it means to be a helpful ally and what it means to learn to be anti-racist.